This is a special edition of WeatherScope with the latest storm update.
Hey, good evening. You're watching the Weather Channel. Bill Keneally with you in the Weather Channel Forecast Center. A wild and woolly final day of wintertime as snows are now creeping in western Ohio. Snow accumulating at the rate of an inch per hour now in the city of Dayton, Ohio, while another low is starting to form along the Delaware coast, and that's causing a lot of wind and a lot of high tide around the middle Atlantic coast. Let's show you the current weather map, see what's going on. There's your culprit. Low pressure now over Morgantown, West Virginia, but it does look like there's a secondary low trying to form around the Delmarva Peninsula area. That low is going to probably take over and then slowly track its way up just about over the city of Boston over the next 24 hours. It already some very high wind on the Jersey Shore. We had mentioned also the rain-snow line now getting into western areas of Ohio, even around Cincinnati, greater Cincinnati airports, all snow. Lexington, Kentucky now is all snow, and even a couple of flakes in the Atlanta area at this hour. So watch out. Here we go again. It's going to be a wild night, I think, at the Weather Channel. Thankfully, the element of severe weather appears to be diminishing quite a bit. Well, there's how it looks on the satellite vantage point. We continue to see counterclockwise flow around that low pressure area, tapping a lot of very cold air, and once again, very strong winds coming down over Lake Michigan, around the Chicagoland area. We have had some winds as high as 60 miles per hour around Meggsfield. The low pressure right about here over Morgantown, secondary low forming right about over the Delmarva Peninsula, but I think the bulk of the energy is going to get transferred to the coast over the next 24 hours. Now, as far as the flooding goes, we continue to see coastal flood warnings up on the Delaware beaches and the Jersey Shore and also Long Island. Right about here in Seaside Park, New Jersey, 62 mile per hour wind during the past hour. Also around the Seabright area, the infamous seawall, water is now lapping over that seawall, so that boulevard, Ocean Avenue I think it is, has now been shut in Seabright, New Jersey. Coastal flood warnings expected, high tide right about now, anywhere from Fenwick Island, Delaware to Watch Hill, Rhode Island. And once again, the radar shows lots of rain coming on in, and it's all moving generally off towards the northwest. And by the way, in Allentown, PA, right about in here, 53 mile per hour wind in the past hour. Very gusty winds, the hallmark of these heavier showers. We've also had power outages in Bergen County, New Jersey, and as well down through Philadelphia and Baltimore. We have some heavy rain reported likewise. We want to take you now to Indianapolis, Indiana. Our roving reporter Mark Mancuso on the scene. And Mark, we talked about the wind in the east. It looks like the wind and the snow may be picking up as well in Indianapolis.
Well, Bill, I was just in touch with the Weather Service here, and they tell me that the winds are gusting now to 35 miles an hour, so that's about 35 knots, I should say, so that's up to about 40 miles an hour. And it's been looking pretty good out here for the past hour or so, but most of the snow is going sideways, so it's really blowing about, so it looks like it's intensifying.
Mark, it looks like
it really is not accumulating.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Mark, it looked like a lot of the heavier rain elements in northern Ohio are now starting to wrap into that low pressure area coming back in Indiana, so it looks like the snow, if anything, will pick up in intensity later on tonight.
Okay, well, let's take a look earlier from today around Indianapolis, Bill, and as we check on the scene here, you can see the snow is coming down pretty heavy, and it made for some bad driving conditions, and there were a few fender benders, of course, around the area. It's been a while since we've seen snows like this in Indianapolis, so a little rough on both the motorists and pedestrians. And in the downtown area, everybody was just taking it in stride, going on off to work there. So just one of those late spring storms, or late winter storms, or early spring storms, with a lot of heavy, wet snow, a lot of slush, a lot of wind. But Bill, you've mentioned more snow tonight. The feeling is around here maybe another inch or two, but the big problem is the temperatures. It's right now freezing right here, so it could get a little slick later on.
All right, Mark Mancuso, thank you very much. Watch out for the snow building up in those trees and the power lines. All right, let's talk about what happened in Nashville, Tennessee. Earlier today, snow fell likewise around the Music City, anywhere from 2 to 5 inches across the area. You can see the snow did stick primarily on the grassy surfaces. However, a fair amount of salt was laid down in the streets because a lot of slush did build up on the roadways. You can see it was, like Mark said, a wind-driven snow. That is the hallmark of our low-pressure area. Very strong winds primarily from the north. All right, let's talk about what happened here. The snow fell in a fairly narrow area. Why? Well, the low-pressure area tracked across Kentucky. Up in Ohio, we had a northeast wind. That was not really bringing the cold air in. You had to get the northwest wind, which we had back through Illinois and Indiana. And that's where that freezing line was. Now also with low pressure, you got to remember that the wind is flowing in towards low pressure, so that is a lifting as it gets in towards that center. And as you lift that air up into that colder air up there at about a mile high, where it was below 32 degrees, that is where we had the snow. And that transport of cold air came down to the surface and brought the heavy snow into greater Indianapolis. All right, let's show you that radar now, see what's going on here. We continue to see the rain-snow line moving in just west of Toledo. It is now snowing in the Dayton area. Downtown Cincinnati had been all rain. Looks like it's now starting to turn over. Chicago, the big news is the wind. Any snow here has been very, very light so far, so that is indeed the good news. Temperatures are coming down, as Mark mentioned, now hovering at freezing in the Indianapolis area. 33 at the airport, although we have lost our warm sun angle for the day. Some of that sun does even get through on a cloudy day, but now that we're at nighttime, we're going to have to watch that temperature probably fall. You can see our heavier snows in Indiana as well as Kentucky. And incidentally, upwards of a foot of snow has fallen around Blairsville, Indiana, just to the west of the Evansville area, and also some heavy snow falling south of Louisville, pretty much above the river. That is up in the highlands. That's where the heavier snow has accumulated. Now for more on the current weather and the forecast for the weekend, here's Christina.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Here's what we're looking at across the country with temperatures certainly looking at some cooler readings moving in here to the Plain States and into the southeast. We're looking at temperatures ranging from the 20s, 30s, and into the 40s here. A cold night in store across the southeastern U.S. But head west, and you are looking at very nice weather here. 78 currently still in L.A., 85 in Phoenix, so nice warm weather for you. Some of the best weather in the country as we see just not a lot of inclement weather here in the west. A ridge of high pressure keeping you nice and dry till we head to the northwest as we see a little bit of that energy moving in over the top of that ridge, producing some wet weather in western Washington and, of course, in the east. This is where the big story is with our strong area of low pressure that Bill just told you about. Lots of wet weather, lots of snow here. Well, as we see on our radar picture, most of the active radars are here in the east with the rain and the snow, but we do see a little soggy weather showing up in western Washington too, around the Seattle area, getting some soggy conditions as we focus in earlier around Bellingham, saw some rain, and generally just around the Seattle area, some wet weather around Stampede Pass, a little report of snow here, so some of the higher elevations perhaps picking up a little bit of snow. Well, let's head to our forecast and we'll see what's in store for tomorrow across the country. And in the west, it is going to remain quiet here for San Francisco, for Phoenix. That's when we head up again around the Seattle area. Enough moisture in place for some wet weather for you. We continue to watch our area of low pressure, actually 2 areas of low pressure by Wednesday morning. That cold air wrapping around, the snow's continuing here, the wet weather out ahead of it. So look out in Pittsburgh and Cleveland, and eventually maybe even back into Atlanta. We could be looking at some snow showers here into northern Georgia, northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, so all into the deep south, looking at that cold air and the moisture, so snow certainly a possibility here on the first day of spring. And into the northeast we go with wet weather again out ahead of our system, and that's going to continue on in through the day with the snow moving into parts of northern New England and northern New York State. But look here in the central U.S. In the west, all's quiet here, but in the east it is going to be the snow, the wet weather, and in some areas here to the south we may be looking at a little frozen precipitation moving into these regions, parts of the Carolinas and into southern Georgia. Look out maybe in places like Savannah or Albany, Georgia. So certainly some interesting weather to start off spring. Here's where we're looking at the heaviest precipitation. That will be in the northeastern U.S. and again some of that precipitation falling in the form of snow. Right now we think the heaviest amounts are going to be here from West Virginia back through western Pennsylvania with chilly temperatures here, the coldest temperatures in the northern plains, but 30s will be felt all the way down to the Gulf Coast states. Very chilly.